Hello, and thank you for taking the time to watch the video that my team and I put together to go over the marketing research we have found over the course of our Marketing 301 class this semester. It is unfortunate and a shame that we could not present this presentation in person to you, but we are going to make the most of the technology we have in hand, and hopefully this slideshow video presentation does not take away from the important information that we have found in terms of marketing principles and applications that the Aviation Museum of Kentucky can use in the future. The voices you will hear in this presentation will be Emmett, Connors, and myself, Dustin. Again, thank you for taking the time to watch this video presentation. We hope that our research will help the Aviation Museum of Kentucky in the years to come to bring in more visitors and further support the museum's mission of reaching and educating the community about the aviation world. All right, so we're going to start with an overview of what this presentation is going to entail. First, we're going to start with the SWOT analysis. My team has done this analysis on the Aviation Museum of Kentucky and a close competitor, the Tri-State Warbird Museum. Then we'll jump into the STP analysis, discussing segmenting, targeting, and positioning. We'll then go into recommendations, implementation, the market matrix, conclusion, and our final thoughts on this project. The first thing we are going to talk about is SWOT. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is a situation analysis technique used as a valuable tool in the development of a marketing plan. When talking about SWOT, it is important that the firm understands the difference between internal and external issues. Strengths and weaknesses focus on internal characteristics of the firm or company. In this case, the internal characteristics of the museum. And opportunities and threats focus on the external environment. As we go through the SWOT analysis, you will see that our team composed a SWOT for both the Aviation Museum of Kentucky and the Tri-State Warbird Museum. It is important that when conducting marketing research that you not only do it for your firm, business, or in this case museum, but also analyze the competition. We picked the Tri-State Warbird Museum because of the similarity of exhibit aircraft, both museums focusing heavily on military aircraft, and because of the size of Tri-State Warbird Museum and its location relative to the airfield. Also, they have a very similar size and volunteer workforce structure of the Aviation Museum of Kentucky. The Tri-State Warbird Museum is a direct competitor to the Aviation Museum of Kentucky. The first part of the SWOT analysis we're going to look at is strengths. The strengths of AMK include a diverse aircraft exhibits. This includes military exhibits, historical exhibits like the Doolittle Raid, to Kentucky Hall of Fame aviation exhibits that feature Kentuckians who have made history in the aviation world. The second thing is AMK has to offer is 6 days a week is when they're open and they're operating. Currently, they're not on that schedule as they are currently abiding by the COVID-19 restrictions. However, normal operating hours include 6 days a week. They're open with various hours for winter and summer, which allows student organizations, church organizations, and families to come in and view their museum. They have an observation viewing area located on the commercial apron ramp. This allows for visitors to the museum to take what they learned inside the museum and apply it to the next step while viewing airplanes take off, land, and taxi around the airport. This is in a good location to the airline apron as well as to the TAC Air fixed-based operator. The last strength AMK has is their partnership with the local community and university to promote aviation and the young kids through the summer camps and winter events. They also host a summer camp which allows students and young kids the opportunity to learn more about the aviation industry, as well as in the winter they offer a Santa fly-in which allows Santa to come in on a helicopter and meet with young kids. TWMB has some strengths as well. Their strengths is that they're located in a metropolitan region. This region is right outside the greater Cincinnati area, located directly off of Interstate 275. Their ability for mobile museum with a presence at air shows, TWMB has the presence and the ability to move their aircraft into these air shows such as Oshkosh and other events and stage those aircraft there, which further promotes their museum. And they have a large and positive social media presence. Looking at their Facebook page, they have a direct link from their Facebook page to their website, which allows for more visitors to follow and see what their website has to offer, as well as get relative and new information about their museum. All right, so now we're going to cover weaknesses of both AMK and TWMB. The first weakness of AMK is their website capabilities. When putting this report together and doing this project, we noticed that their website was undergoing a little bit of construction. However, a lot of the things on the website are not finished yet or just give basic information. We would suggest seeking out maybe putting up pictures with captions underneath so people can get a feel of what the museum's like before experiencing it in person. The second weakness of AMK is their social media marketing and promotion. We noticed that they didn't really have a whole lot of social media marketing and promotion. They had just a very little bit on Facebook. However, we encourage them to maybe reach out and try Twitter, try Facebook, try Instagram, Snapchat stories, other things to reach a more target audience, the young family, the younger students, and different things to reach that specific audience. The last weakness of AMK is that they're landlocked with no space to expand their current facility. They don't have the ability to build on to their current facility in any way because they're landlocked between the road, the parking lot, and the airport itself. TWMB has some weaknesses. Their first weakness is that they only have military aircraft exhibits. This could pose as a weakness because it doesn't give the opportunity for visitors to understand anything other than military aircraft and may bring in a specific visitor instead of just generic wanting to know about the aviation industry. Only having military aircraft really limits their visitor and what their visitor may want to come and experience. Their second weakness is they have limited operating hours. They only operate on Wednesdays and Saturdays. This is really limited, and it poses as a weakness because with many Americans and with many potential visitors, people don't like to be that time crunch, and they want to have the flexibility to come and go or to spur the moment go and do something. And this really doesn't allow for that. So that is their first weakness, or their second weakness. Their third weakness is that it's actually more expensive than AMK. It's $12 a person versus the price at AMK, which is cheaper than that, nearly half that cost. And for a more expensive exhibit, although it is in the surrounding greater Cincinnati area, they have limited operating hours and they're more expensive for only getting to see a small facility still. And with that small facility, they're only getting to see military aircraft. This could pose as a weakness because larger families would then have to spend more money per person, or spend more money per visit because they have a larger family or more adults in the family. So that would be another weakness. All right, so now we're going to talk about opportunities. These opportunities are going to be for both AMK and TWMB. The first opportunity is national awareness and marketing efforts deployed to aid in the future career growth. As of right now and in today, Boeing put out a statistic a few years ago that says in the next 10 years, nearly 800,000 pilots are going to be needed in the United States. Alongside the pilots, you're also going to need technicians and mechanics and flight attendants and the ability to produce more aircraft and other things. So with this national awareness, both AMK and TWMB can use those and deploy those in a way where they can market to the young and career-seeking individuals and students who may actually want to pursue a field in something similar or something that has to do with the aviation industry. The second opportunity they both have is the technological advances, having the ability to open up exhibits that talk about future developments in the aviation industry, such as like maybe solar power flight or zero fuel flight. And there's many more other opportunities, but getting exhibits up now that talks about the future of aviation and what aviation is going to look like maybe to 3 generations from now would be an opportunity that both AMK and TWMB could offer to the visitors of their museums or even in an online platform. The last opportunity for both AMK and TWMB is that the expansions of current museum space through rental or lease agreement with neighboring fixed space operators. What I mean by this is you can't that these facilities can't necessarily build onto their current buildings, but they may have the opportunity to expand in ways such as getting or obtaining rental or lease agreements in other parts of the airports they're currently operating in order to house more aircraft or open more museums, or even receiving rental or lease agreements for other buildings or other hangars in different airports than where they're currently based out of in order to open up maybe a second or third location to reach a more wide variety of potential visitors. The last part of the SWOT analysis is threats, and these threats are both for AMK and TWMB. Of the threats, the first one is that there's other museums in the area that could be cheaper or free. A big threat to both of these would be the museum like the Dayton Air Museum or the National Air Force Museum up in Dayton, Ohio, which allows visitors to come and go and view their enormous museum for free. So the threat is that there's other museums in the area that maybe be more kid-friendly or may cost less, that visitors that would potentially come to AMK or TWMB would thus go to those other museums. The second threat is a time-poor society. We live in a society that it's always rush, 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 get things done. Eat, sleep, work. So the problem is that our society doesn't really take the time to go and seek out these learning opportunities to build on the knowledge maybe they currently have. So we live in a time-poor society, and it's really ingrained in us at a small age. So the ability to have visitors come to your museum and seek out visitors to want to take the time out to go and tour museums is very difficult to do and would be a challenge for both AMK and TWMB. And the last one is a lack of general government funding for educational museums nationally. There's a lack of funding that's going toward these museums, again, because of all the other things that are going on and all the other places where money can go. It sometimes seems that museums aren't the exact location for the government to be spending money, but however, I think that funding is critical and important for museums in order to grow, in order to restore or keep historical things that we've happened in our past that are going to happen in the future, and use those for educational purposes moving forward for our kids, our grandkids, and our great-grandkids. So I think those are really important things. However, they all seem to be threats that AMK and TWMB are going to be facing in terms of potential and future growth.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the STP. That's the segmentation, targeting, and positioning, or how we divide our consumer base up into workable groups that we can market specifically towards. Segmentation is the first step of the process. It divides the market into large categories to make subcategories that you can more specifically market to. Some examples of segmentation categories are age, young people versus older people, gender, male versus female, income level, lower class, upper class, city or rural area, if you're in a high population density, what a person's hobbies may be, their buying habits, their marital status, be it single or married, and some of their lifestyle choices. We divided our targets into 3 separate groups, those of 18 years of age and younger. They can be male or female from middle to high income families in the greater Lexington area who enjoy learning and have spare time. We have 31 to 50-year-olds who can be male or female from middle to high income and spending habit families in the greater Lexington area who enjoy learning and have spare time and money to visit a museum. They can be either single or married. And our final group is 71-year-olds and over. They can be male or female, also from high income families. These can either be Lexingtonians or visitors traveling through on vacation. They enjoy learning, they have spare time and money to visit a museum, and they can also be single or married. Positioning refers to how you're going to attract your new audience using marketing. For the younger generation, we're going to use social media posts. For the families of those younger members, we're going to do educational events and day camps that will entice parents to bring their children, as well as family pricing. And for the older folks, we're going to do Hall of Fame relations prices for if you're related to anybody that's in the Hall of Fame, and then a wall of donors for anyone that would like to donate money to help keep the museum going. Overall, the view of the STP for the Aviation Museum of Kentucky is very diverse, so we're going to use social media posting, monetary incentives, day camps, and a welcoming and friendly environment to try to attract a new crowd.
So now it's time to talk about the recommendations that we feel that would be the most beneficial for the Aviation Museum of Kentucky. So the first one is going to be collaboration efforts. This is going to entail going out into the community and partnering with schools, libraries, businesses, and other aviation and non-aviation related museums. This would be a really good recommendation and idea for exposing your name to other sectors of the market that you otherwise wouldn't be able to reach out to. Our second recommendation is increase social media presence. They already have a Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, I believe, but more of getting more involved with them and engaging more with uh, their audience and their those who they're also trying to target as well. Re-engage past visitors as the third recommendation. This is going to be very important for establishing those lifetime customers, and do this through air shows, fly-ins, and as we'll talk about in a minute, the Collins Foundation. And last but not least, giving back to the community, being guest speakers, establishing a food bank, and corporate philanthropy, all of which that we'll get into in just a minute. So the implementation of the first recommendation, which dealt with establishing partnerships with organizations and other groups within the community, um, is a great thing to do. Helps with content design, and so to begin with, we talk about determining which partner would be the best to engage with and collaborate with based on based on our target audience, and use such things as uh, who do the partnering groups and organizations reach out to, and how many people do they reach out to? This is going to be very important in trying to decide the best organization to collaborate with, to reach the target audience that we are trying to uh, get more involved in our in our museum. So this group's can be the under 18-year-olds, but also their parents and guardians and older adults that come from middle high income families in the greater Lexington area. So in doing this, also a great way to kind of get with another organization would be to develop internships or community programs with like EKU Aviation. This would give an awesome opportunity to uh, get your name out in a community that is engaged solely on aviation, and they would in turn have the potential to spread the word about the museum. Um, but what's most important is assigning a specialist to coordinate with these organizations. That way, it's everyone knows the Aviation Museum of Kentucky by one person, so you're not having to share information and getting facts and everything mixed up. And in that case, it allows for just one person solely to gather information, coordinate with people, and it would just keep it very uniform. For our second recommendation, and talking about the implementation of how we can better suit the social media presence of the Aviation Museum of Kentucky, and having our initial meeting with the individuals at the museum, uh, they informed us that they weren't the most technologically savvy individuals, and that a lot of times they didn't fully know all the capabilities and kind of kinks of social media. But they told us that they were having a technology specialists come in and talk about which social media um, platforms were the best for engaging their audiences and marketing to those target audiences that they're trying to reach out to. And so we feel that beginning with that technology specialist would be the most ideal way to start the implementation of this recommendation. Other ideas that we have for this implementation would be through these social media platforms creating a display or piece of the week, as we call it, where the individuals in the museum take a picture or even live stream one of the displays of the museum and go into more detail with the audience watching the historical significance of um, that display that they're showing, and that way that you're those people that are watching get a chance to see the different displays that are within the museum to engage their interest in the subject. We also have the idea of creating the Kentucky Aviation Figure of the Week using the Hall of Fame that's located in the museum, was similar to the display of the week where someone either through an Instagram post or Facebook live stream uh, chooses a historical figure of the week and kind of gives the history and the historical significance of why that person is in the Hall of Fame and what they did to get there. And so we feel that in doing so, also not only let the audience learn more about aviation in Kentucky, but also potentially spark interest in people that might say, hey, we actually want to come to the museum and we want to see that in person. We want to see that display, or we want to see the picture and read the description of what that individual did to get into the Hall of Fame. And so, last but not least, exclusively dedicating an individual to social media. It would just, like I said previously, it would uniform the whole matter, and in doing so, you can potentially hire an intern to deal with social media, potentially someone younger who's more tech savvy, and then that way they know how to also uh, make the correct posts, both in wording, pictures, and they also have a better idea of what someone their age is looking for in a social media post um, to engage their interest. So our third recommendation dealt with um, re-engaging the visitors and target audience that had previously visited the museum, but the goal is to keep them coming back. Obviously, it's a museum, so there's not always a lot that's going to be changing. There's not always going to be a new product, but you still want them coming back. And so, with our third recommendation, uh, our implementation starts with approaching the Collins Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that focuses on supporting the living history of aviation, and they do this by preservation and exhibition of historical artifacts, mostly aircraft from a lot of World War II aircraft is what they use, and they take them on what they call Wings of Freedom tours, where they go around the country, fly them. You're able to go on rides with them, but they get to not learn about historical aircraft, but they also get to just see pieces of history that shaped where we are today. And so, by approaching the Collins Foundation, we have the potential to get historical aircraft to come to the Aviation Museum of Kentucky, and in doing so, you get to uh, target really the whole greater Lexington area in the hopes of getting them to come out for the aircraft, but also associate that aircraft with the Aviation Museum of Kentucky. But really, it's just to keep them coming back for more and more. Also, as part of the implementation of this recommendation, we feel that maybe visiting local schools for like aviation days would be a good idea, or if they were having like a science fair, potentially having a transportable display where you can set up and have your own booth where kids can walk by and you can teach them about the physics of flight, the history of flight, um, all that kind of stuff. What makes the airplane fly? Just to kind of engage their interest, but also you get to market yourselves to those kids where they can go home and be like, "Hey, mom, the Aviation Museum of Kentucky was at our science fair today, and it sounds really cool. Can we go this weekend?" And not then you have a brand new family coming to visit for the first time, and you may have just found a lifetime customer. And lastly, search for unique opportunities. Um, this kind of deals with, finding events that are kind of hidden gems where you didn't really have an opportunity to, get exactly what he wants, such as you know, air shows are very planned out in advance. But if there's ever a cancellation for an air show, potentially sliding your name in there, getting Bluegrass Airport involved, that kind of stuff, school events, and just kind of paying it forward of you know, just the field of aviation itself, and just inspiring the next generation of pilots, engineers, and just aviation historians to continue on the legacy that those at the museum created. So for our final recommendation, as part of the implementation, we just want to start off talking about corporate social responsibility. Now, obviously, the Aviation Museum of Kentucky isn't a corporation, but that doesn't mean that they don't necessarily have a social responsibility of giving back to the community. And so, what this really derives on is producing that community-driven, generous image that uh, the greater Lexington area uh, will see as kind of a image to where they associate the aviation museum with doing something good. And so the kind of main thing and main reason that we came up with this recommendation is right now in dealing with the whole COVID-19 situation and kind of the quarantine. And so what we focus this one on really is disaster events. Um, you know, one of the main things that educational organizations have been doing right now is um, live streaming, um, whether they're exhibits, you might say, whether it be like a zoo where they're going to a different display of animals and explaining everything about them, or um, as the museum could do, of just going to different displays in their uh, museum and just giving um, the rundown of what the display is. Um, or as you see on the slide here, disaster events, not necessarily pandemics, but if there was a bad storm that goes through the greater Lexington area, um, using the museum as a food bank where people can drop off food or clothing for people that were affected by the storm, and then those affected people can come get food for their family or clothes if they need it. And then they associate the museum with being that place of giving where they're doing it for no money and they're just trying to help the community out. And this in turn creates the image of an organization that cares about its community. And that kind of goes with the last one too, of just engaging the community and doing whatever you can to just go out and in any way assist the community, not for money, just doing it solely to help the community out, and in that in turn will create an image that people associate with the museum of, hey, we care about the community, we want to help you in any way we can, and then that in turn will have the potential to gain visitors at the museum. So talking about market metrics are the way in which organizations such as the museum can track the engagement of their audience, of their target audience, and see whether their marketing tactics are working or not. So we went through each recommendation and discussed what we felt would be the best marketing metric for each recommendation. And so to start off, the customer lifetime value metric actually felt like it went for two of them. And so for the first recommendation, we felt that the customer lifetime value metric would be good for analyzing the entirety of the customer's experience. So not only would it to kind of analyze their first visit that establishes your relationship with the visitor, but it analyzes the entirety of them being your customer over the years of them coming back uh, to the museum. And in doing so, this really deals kind of with how we talked about going out to like schools and partnering up with these organizations, and how uh, they if they keep coming back to you, it allows you to clearly analyze your cost to reward of whether it's worth it marketing to these different organizations and creating partnerships, and it allows you to determine your future action of whether or not if you have two organizations, let's say, and you determine that you're allotting the same amount of marketing time, money, whatever to each organization, and you see that one organization is willing to work with you a lot more than the other one, then you get to determine that you want to go in the direction of the one organization that is constantly wanting to collaborate with you, instead of the one that necessarily isn't really trying to deal with you. In that way, you have a better idea of um, kind of which direction you want to go. The average engagement rate metric was used for the second recommendation dealing with social media. This deals with determining the percentage of engagement for each social media platform. So this allows you to kind of determine which platform, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, is giving you the most interaction with your target audience. And this is on a per reporting period, so you can see whether or not there's one social media platform that is more uh, beneficial in different parts of the um, year. So if one social media platform is better during the off season, then this allows you to know which social media to really use and what time of the year. And then last but not least, the traffic ratio acquisition metric is dealing with the fourth recommendation of giving back to the community. And the reason that we chose this one is it allows you to track how people got to your site through different means of being online. So what I mean by that is it allows you to view how guests potentially reach your site through, researching or typing in your name directly into the URL, searching your name online through like Google or Bing, um, clicking on links through different sites that might have your name on it, interactions with your social media posts where they might hit like a visit my page, that kind of stuff. And it allows you to determine how people are finding your sites better. And in doing so, you get to realize or determine which area is your best chance of uh, hitting that target audience and uh, reaching those demographics that you really are trying to reach. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank you all so much for listening to our narrated PowerPoint. I know it's not necessarily how we all thought that we'd be giving this presentation. I'm sure that's not how you all thought that you'd be listening to the presentation. But I just want to thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to go through this PowerPoint and listen to what we have to say. So just to kind of sum everything up that we've gone through in this PowerPoint, we initially started off this project with a SWOT analysis of your organization, determining the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that we felt were both for your organization and for competition in the surrounding region. I know we kind of hit on the Cincinnati and Bowling Green areas as your potential threats, but we all feel that you all and what you're doing with your organization is a great thing. And I know two of us being in aviation have had great pleasure in working on the aviation related project, and we've all had the absolute pleasure of working with you, great individuals. Um, so, with doing a SWOT analysis, we determined in which direction we feel that we could help implement um, different ideas into your organization to increase visitors coming uh, both into your actual museum and engaging with you all on social media. And so those four recommendations that we just talked about are creating collaborations and kind of partnerships with different organizations. And the surrounding region, kind of the Lexington area, and that way you have more of a chance to get your name out to different parts of the market. Our second recommendation was just, as we talked about, increasing that social media presence. Um, and one of the target audiences that we talked about is trying to reach those kind of under 18-year-olds. And in this day and age, social media is everything to them. So creating a greater social media presence would be a great way to engage with that audience. The third recommendation is seek out unique opportunities such as working with the Collins Foundation and getting historical aircraft to come visit the airport and to just re-engage those visitors that have already um, visited the museum, but to keep them coming back and just have those customers for life, which is really important. And our final recommendation is to connect with the public in your area by, as we talked about, in the current situation that we're in right now with this pandemic and quarantine, uh, having live streams, being guest speakers on informational live streams, and just kind of giving fun lectures on interesting displays that you have, history in Kentucky, and what made Kentucky be such an important aspect of the aviation history. And not only that, but in the event of disasters or something, then being that organization that is viewed as generous and giving back to the communities, either by being like food bank, um, being able to like drop off clothes, all that sort of stuff, but just as we talked about, that corporate responsibility of giving back to the community for them coming and visiting your organization and just creating that self-driven, generous image. Um, all in all, we hope that this presentation has been helpful and that you all are able to implement some of these ideas and increase the amount of people that are coming and visiting your museum. Once again, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you all. You have been a great organization to work with, and we hope that in the near future we're able to get back up there and see all that you all have done. So I thank you all for listening and have a wonderful day.
All right, so now we've reached the end of our presentation. Again, we want to thank you guys for the opportunity for partnering with Dr. Blair and allowing our marketing teams and our presentation teams to do research on the Aviation Museum of Kentucky and your all's facility and what you guys have to offer to the community. We really enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed it. Two of us are aviation majors, and Connor's not. However, he told us, he really, really enjoyed the opportunity to learn what you guys do, and he really didn't know a whole lot before, and now he does. So thank you again for the opportunity to allowing us to do our project on the Aviation Museum of Kentucky. We do appreciate it. On the next three slides, you're going to see all the references. These references are actually the same references that are in our paper and our report that you guys already have, but we use those here as well in presenting this presentation. So again, thank you again for letting us the opportunity to do our report on AMK, and we hope you guys like this. Stay safe and stay healthy.